You know that feeling, right? You go to check your favorite website, and nothing. You try to open an app, it just spins. For that one horrible second, you think, oh no, my internet's dead. But what if it wasn't just you? What if it was practically everyone, all at the same time? Well, that's exactly the story we're getting into today. This really is the big question. It sounds like something out of a movie, but what actually happens when a single company has that much power and something goes terribly wrong? Because not too long ago, this stopped being a hypothetical question. For millions of people, for one very long hour, a massive chunk of the internet just blinked out of existence. And this is the story of how it all went down. Okay, so to really understand what broke, we have to start with the chaos it caused. Let's talk about that moment when it felt like the digital ground just opened up and swallowed a huge piece of the web. The symptoms were suddenly everywhere. Major news sites, big online services, apps you use every day, poof, they were gone. And of course, the first thought for pretty much everyone was the same. Is my Wi-Fi broken? But it didn't take long to realize this was something way, way bigger. It was a wave of pure confusion that just washed over the globe. And this wasn't just a feeling, you could actually see it in the data. Look at this. Global internet traffic didn't just dip, it fell off a cliff, dropping by almost 40% in just minutes. When you see a drop that sharp and that synchronized, it screams one thing, a single, massive point of failure. Which brings us to the culprit, the one common thread connecting all this chaos. It was a company that most people have never even heard of, but one you probably interact with dozens, if not hundreds of times a day. We're talking about the web's hidden gatekeepers. And that company is Cloudflare. Now, the simplest way to think about them is as the internet's security guard and traffic cop all rolled into one. For a huge part of the web, they stand in the middle, protecting sites from attacks and making sure everything loads super fast for you. And when I say a huge part, I mean the number is just staggering. An estimated 20% of the entire internet runs through Cloudflare's network. Just let that sink in for a second. 1 in every 5 websites you visit is relying on this single company to work properly. And this right here shows you exactly why they're so popular. I mean, if you're running a website, using Cloudflare makes you faster, safer from attacks, and just generally more reliable. It's almost a no-brainer. But it also means that when the gatekeeper stumbles, a huge chunk of the internet stumbles right along with it. So if Cloudflare is supposed to be the internet's protector, what in the world happens when the protector is the one that breaks? Let's get into the anatomy of this outage and see how one little change snowballed into a global mess. I mean, just look how fast this all happened. At 1:57 p.m., a new software rule gets pushed out. Just 5 minutes later, the internet starts to break. Less than 20 minutes after that, their core systems are totally maxed out. It took about half an hour to pinpoint the problem, and an hour after it all began, the fix was rolling out. An entire hour of digital darkness triggered in an instant. This quote from the company's own report really cuts to the chase. This wasn't some kind of crazy cyber attack from a foreign power. It was a self-inflicted wound, a bad piece of software that basically made their own system turn on itself. So here's the chain reaction, broken down. It all starts with one single, flawed software rule. Let's go back to our traffic cop analogy. Imagine you give the traffic cop a new, crazy instruction, like stop directing traffic, and instead count every single red car that goes by and write down its license plate number backwards. The cop's brain, the server's CPU, would just go into overdrive trying to follow this one impossible rule, and all the actual traffic would grind to a halt. That's exactly what happened here. The servers got so busy with the bad rule that they couldn't do their real job, creating a massive cascading failure, a global digital traffic jam. So the outage was fixed in about an hour. Crisis over, right? Well, not exactly. The fact that it happened at all forces us to ask a much bigger and frankly more uncomfortable question about the internet we rely on every single day. You know, we love to talk about the internet as this decentralized, resilient thing. But an event like this shows us that, in reality, it's become incredibly centralized around a few key players like Cloudflare. This creates these massive single points of failure, where one tiny human error, not some big dramatic cyber attack, can have an absolutely enormous global impact. When you boil it all down, what this incident really reminds us is that for all its incredible power, the interconnected world we've built rests on a foundation that can be, well, surprisingly fragile.
And that leaves us with the one big question that has no easy answer. Is all the speed and convenience we've come to expect from the internet really worth the hidden fragility that we've built into its very core? It's something to think about.